Okay, so jobs. We have under here, under labor section, we have jobs. We go into jobs, and this is what we're going to configure to apply our employees to. So basically what you do is you flesh out the jobs, and then you apply those jobs to those particular employees. So somebody's like a busser or a bartender, you would give them the bartender and the busser jobs. We'll talk about job permissions. So let's go into bartender here. The bartender, first of all, it's going to ask about the pay basis. It's going to ask if it's hourly or salary. You don't necessarily need to fill any of this stuff in, but it's useful for your numbers if you do, just because you'll have accurate reporting on how much you guys are shelling out in labor and that sort of thing. Let's see here. You can make it whether this job is a tip position, whether this person's a cashier, whether they're a driver, etc., etc. And then what we have are the different levels of access. So first of all, we're going to talk about POS access, or the base level of access. For your bartenders, I recommend, of course, that they have table service, quick order, and payment terminal modes available to them. Bartenders will not be able to apply cash payments, am I correct? Or will they be able to apply cash payments? Only managers can apply cash payments, correct?
Correct.
All right. All right. Payment terminal mode they will need. Apply cash payments. No, they will not. Just kidding. Now, your servers and whatnot, are they able to touch and edit each other's checks?
No.
No. Okay. Add update service charges. Only managers will be able to add service charges. Am I correct? Okay. Let's see here. View their reports. Should view data. I will not need to know sale. Credit cards if need be. Offline background credit card processing. This one I will recommend that you make sure you always have this on. What this is that if our system goes offline, so like Comcast cuts the cable or something like that on accident, and you guys lose internet, you will still be able to run credit card transactions without hindrance. So what happens is when you run the transaction, it keeps all the information locally on the local machine, and then once the signal comes back online, it sends the information through. Now, this is kind of a double-edged sword because of the fact that if you guys are offline, it's always going to approve the transactions. If one of the transactions after it comes online, it might bounce back that it's declined. So it's something that you do with caution. You can set up thresholds of particular amounts. So you can set it that like you can't accept credit card transactions over like $100, for example. But that can cause a problem too, because if you, it'll keep you protected. But if a customer has an order of over $100, then it screws them up. Yeah. So chances are it's not. You would have to be offline and also have a bad payment at the same time. It's really unlikely that this situation will come up. One thing I will say, however, is that if your system does go offline, never tell your customers. Make sure your servers never tell your customers, because if somebody figures that out, that they can make a false payment, they'll just go ahead and spend it on their Visa prepaid that's got 18 cents on it, and you guys have nothing. So definitely something to keep in mind. Offline, credit card processing, change table, change server. Delivery mode is the second, delivery access is the second level, but you guys won't be needing that. Manager functions. Now, can bartenders really do any like manager functions, things like discounts, voids, removals of things? Let's see, can they? Will they be able to run other payment types, such as gift cards and that sort of thing? No. Okay. Refund payments, refunds, edit sent items, other payment types, set entries, early, close of pay. Adjust cash, charge, starting balance, payout, find checks, register, okay. Okay, so that's looking to be all that they're gonna need. So from this point forward, I'm just gonna talk a little bit more about like the access levels. Down here we have level 4, which is restaurant administration. Restaurant administration is all this stuff that's going on here, all this back-end access and all this changing of settings on the restaurant. That is what we're doing right now. So So yeah, one's ability to go in here and view full sales reports, ability to edit tables or employee information, being able to view and edit employee wages and job info and whatnot. Then we have the quick edit access level. If we go into the system here, and if we go into the ordering screen, if we press and hold one of the buttons here, it'll ask you if I want to enter quick edit mode. If I do hit quick edit mode, you're going to see this grid appear over this, telling you that you are currently actively editing. I can do things like I can remove items. I can hit this dotted square right here and go ahead and add new items or an existing item. If there's something that already exists in another menu and you just want to bring it over into this one, you can go ahead and do that. You can click and hold and move items around, change their position. If you hit this button, you can change the color. You're able to manipulate the regular name as well as the POS name. The POS name can be a shorthand version of that item's name, better for servers and that sort of thing, so they can more quickly find things instead of the big long plate names and whatnot. Quantity. If I set a quantity and save it, it'll automatically apply to that quantity to that particular item. Every time somebody orders that item, that number is going to go down until once it hits 0, and then you cannot make a selection of that item any longer until the quantity is readjusted. So it's good for setting things that you have limited quantity of. You only got 12 or something left, you can go ahead and do that. All right, in stock. Save, done. Okay, so, but what this is referring to is that quick access function, quick edit functionality. You can break down independently what they can do. Like, can they change the button color, the name, the POS name, price, inventory and quantity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can set it so that just, they can only move buttons around for convenience and that sort of thing. But that causes fights between people sometimes because one group of people wants something to be somewhere and the other doesn't. And then there is web setup. Web setup, this is a little bit more advanced version of the restaurant administration stuff. This is things like, can this person publish changes? They can go into the back end, they can go ahead and make changes, but can they finalize those changes? Kitchen, dining room setup, payment setup, all kinds of advanced stuff that has to do with like the flow of money inside the restaurant. Device setup. Every device has particular settings that are specific to that particular device. That's whether or not somebody can go in and make changes to that device. And then finally, there's account administration. This is typically restricted to owners only. This is all stuff like financial accounts, user permissions, data export, and that sort of thing that is very critical to a restaurant. I'm going to go ahead and save that position. Okay. Now, one thing I would recommend to you in light of this is that you just go ahead and comb through the job list, this one here, and determine exactly which jobs that you, these are the defaults that Toast has provided. So you'd want to go through and just add or remove particular job titles that apply to your establishment, and then set the permissions for those particular jobs. I would recommend that sort of like homework before I come in and do the installation tomorrow, but I, of course, will be here to do install, and I will be here to help. So if this doesn't get done, I will be able to help you make sure to get this gets set up, okay? So, and then we have employees. So under the jobs, under labor, below jobs, we have employees. Go to employees, and this is where you're going to go to add your employees to your roster. So if we go ahead and hit this drop down here, we've got invite new user, create new user, and quick add users. Quick add's pretty obvious. Just go ahead and do this, and you can very quickly run through and just add employees very, very fast. First name, last name, ID is not necessary. That is an employee ID, at least that's what we call it. That's what it shows inside the actual profile. Employee ID is nothing particularly important. It's just useful for bookkeeping and that sort of thing. It's usually like an encoding or a shortened name or notes or something like that for that particular employee. You do not need that in order to set up an employee profile. Job. Right now, from this menu, you are only able to select a single job. You can go back into the job and go back into the employee and assign more jobs to them. But if they only have the one job, really easy to just set them up here. passcode. This is the number that they're going to use to enter the system. This is going to be a 1 to 8 alphanumeric code, or a numeric code for them to enter. And then email is optional. It's something that you can add if you would like to. Emails, it's useful contact information and that sort of thing for you. There is also the invite new user and create new user. So the difference between these two is create new user looks like this. So much like the quick add information, it's going to be first name, last name. This one prompts for a phone number and a photo. You don't necessarily need that. Obviously, anything with a star next to it is what you're going to need to put in. So basically, you just need first name, last name, and a passcode. It's recommended that you add an email just because, a certain configuration in the future. Emails just make things easier in the future if we need to make certain adjustments, but it is not necessary. One thing about this, though, is that with the email, it also has this checkbox, enter password for Toast administration backend. So your general employees, you're not going to want them to have that ability. They're not going to be able to enter the system. They're not going to have an email and passcode associated with going into the back end of the system. Now, but what happens with managers? Your managers obviously are going to need access and they're going to need a password. So instead of this, because you would have to enter the password for them, and you can't know the manager's passwords, it's probably a personal password. So what you would do instead in this instance, if you want to bring managers into the system, you would instead invite user. You're going to invite the new user and then you're going to put in their email address and send them an invitation, at which point they're going to go open their email, open that up, and they're going to activate their account by punching in their first name, last name, and their passcode, and whatever information they also want to provide. From here, you can select which job that particular person you're inviting is going to have. So yeah, like a manager position or something like that, you would put in manager, and then you would go ahead and check the box to select that person's permissions. Right. So, and then one thing also is if I were to go in and edit an employee, let me put together an example. Give me one quick second.